I'm sure there was an era in automobiles where everyone thought that manual transmissions were as good as we'd ever need. Then the automatic transmission showed up, and now that's the standard. And that's kind of like holsters. Once you get used to shooting a competition with a locking race-style holster, that's all you want to use. Which is a problem, because that's illegal in carry optics in production in USPSA, until now. Enter the Ghost Hydra P+. Are you ready? Stand by. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel, the only gun channel here on YouTube that drips with that BDE. That's right, that big dad energy. You remember that movie Air Bud?
Anything in there says a dog can't play.
He's right. Ain't no rules that the dog can't play basketball.
Well, there's about 7 or 8 different spin-offs of that called Air Buddies, and I've seen all of them at this point. They're horrible. I'm David, and this is the Ghost Hydra P+. And right now you're probably thinking, do I really need to update my gun bucket Kydex style holster? And there's really two kinds of people. There's those people who like and appreciate locking race holsters, and then there's people who are wrong. No, not really. But Kydex holsters are kind of a love-hate sort of relationship. My own history with them is in USPSA, you're allowed to run around and do walkthroughs, and I've had 3 guns jog out of regular Kydex style holsters and dropping on the ground, which is really embarrassing and potentially unsafe. With locking race holsters, that goes away because there is a mechanical lock in the form of this little lever right here that pushes a ball bearing into the trigger guard so the gun becomes seized up in the holster. And it's very easy to disable on this style because you just flip it up like that. You can do it on the draw stroke if that's what you're into. And there's criticism against it. A lot of shooters think that the locks are dumb because what you end up doing is you accidentally lock it into the holster and you lose time on the clock because you locked it into the holster. And that is a thing. New people who are getting used to race holsters do have to come up the learning curve. That's why the Ghost mechanism is so beautiful with how they do their lever, because it is super duper easy to turn on and off. So what features does the race holster offer that a traditional holster doesn't? Well, race holsters don't actually cradle the entire muzzle of the gun like a traditional gun bucket. And I know that's what this looks like. It looks like it's got a traditional holster body like you're used to seeing for my Kydex maker, but this is really just a shroud. Like the shroud does not retain the gun at all. It just covers it to comply with the rules. What ends up happening is this little pocket right here inside the holster cradles the trigger guard, and that's how the gun is held in place. The shroud keeps it from like falling forward or out or anything like that, but really it's just there to comply with the rules. So the end result of what you get is a significantly smoother draw. I've done videos testing whether a locking race holster versus a traditional bucket holster is any faster. It's not. They're roughly the same. But once you get used to that locking mechanism and the adjustability that typically comes on a race holster, it's tough to want to go back. It's not for everybody, but if you know you like race holsters, then this is one for you. Now, this particular Hydra P+ is for the P320. It's one of the first ones available. They're up on the website now for pre-order. In full disclosure, they did send this to me, so FCC, you can be happy now. But this was for the P320, and I didn't actually shoot it in a match, but I did go practice on the range with it, and I absolutely love the thing. Like, I like race holsters, and if I shot carry optics, this would be the holster that I would use still. I currently shoot open division with proper race holsters, so I mean, I'm a big fan. There are 2 differences between the models, the Hydra P and the Hydra P+. The P+ comes with the 3G clip, which has 2 tabs that you can open the clip up, which is nice if you're traveling or flying, because you can take your holster off your belt, put it in your bag, and roll up your belt to be pretty small to fit in your bag. But it also provides kind of an offset from the holster as well to put the holster right where it needs to be, sort of right on the edge of legal, which is where you kind of want it to be for action pistol shooting. The other big difference is how it attaches to the hanger. There's this like post right here that goes into this collar that has 2 set screws, and that's how you adjust how the grip is kind of rotated this way. You can move the grip up and down. It is, in my opinion, kind of the superior version of the holster, and this would be the version that I would recommend if you picked one. There is a thigh pad down here that allows you to adjust cant. You can see I've kind of got a traditional speed cant, which is pretty typical for USPSA shooting, and it's what I would recommend you do as well. The question that I got on my Patreon is talking about the holster hanger itself. Now, this is an aluminum bar coming off the belt there. It's not as thick like those who are familiar with the Boss hanger. The Boss hanger is nearly twice as thick right here, and it is, as a result, more rigid. I can't deform the Boss at all trying to bend it in my hands, and I kind of can with this one, but the reality is that this one is stiff enough to where the gun isn't moving around as a result of the hanger anyway. Before we dive in on the holster, it's worth noting that Ghost does have coupon codes, and this is one that you can use if you've got an order. Gear Up 10 is a code that will get you 10% off your order. Since the Hydra P Plus is about $130, that'll save you a sweet $13, which is, you know, enough to get lunch with, so that's pretty cool. As far as accommodating different grip modules on the P320, I tried it with the AXG frame and a TXG grip module. Both of them work as if the gun were made for it. It works really, really well. As far as negatives are concerned on the holster, there's not a ton. I mean, there's little things on sort of everything, and that's kind of what you're left with here. Probably the biggest, most glaring issue, and it's still very, very minor, is the way that the clip attaches to the belt. You can't get it quite 100%, like completely doesn't move at all on the belt. There's just a little bit of wiggle. This is the Ghost Evo on my open gun belt that has the same thing, and you can see there's just a tiny little bit of wiggle. It doesn't matter and is completely immaterial when you're actually shooting, but if you're just like holding the thing and you can feel the little bit of wiggle, it'll drive you a little bit crazy, but it's not a problem. Like, the gun doesn't move around as a result of there being this slight amount of wiggle on how it mounts the belt. It will get your ADD going something fierce. The second deal, and this honestly isn't a big deal to me, some people will care about this, but it basically is set up to be sort of optimized for what the limit is for holding the gun away from your body is concerned. It's exactly where you'd want it to be to get a nice clean draw on the gun, but you can't like move it in closer if for some reason you don't like fast draw times. I don't necessarily perceive that as a negative because it's exactly where I'd want it adjusted to be to, but I know some of you will. And that's really kind of it as far as gripes are concerned about the holster. Other than that, I'm actually pretty high on it. It's priced competitively for what a traditional like production race style holster is going to be. You can get less costly ones like the Ghost Thunder, which is a pretty solid option if you only want to spend about 70 bucks, which is similarly appointed, but it's just kind of a gun bucket style holster. As far as using a locking race holster is concerned, when you first pick one up for the first time, you need to get used to it. And the way it works is you push in on the little lever, then you can rotate it down if you want to do a quick draw and flick it up like that, or you can move it up, which takes more effort to get behind and do that if you want to make sure it's more secure. Basically, this is a Ghost the One holster that swapped out the muzzle support for this shroud that kind of wraps around the holster. As far as learning how to use a race holster, you have to work it into your make ready. When you make ready, you do whatever it is you need to do. You're going to put the gun back into the holster, and before you take your gun from your holster, just test where the knob is with your finger before moving your hand away. If you work that into your make ready every single time, you won't have an issue accidentally locking the holster. That's not to say that you won't have issues in practice, because you will until you kind of intuitively understand how to use one. So that is the Ghost Hydra P Plus holster. I think it's really awesome. Remember, if you want to save 10%, Gear Up 10 will save you 10% at ghostholsterdirect.com. I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.